Who here feels like a good shooter?
I'm a good shooter, but not. I got lots of room to improve.
Right. Well, that's a very humble opinion. All of you should be raising your hands, though, right? Because if you compare yourself to the average gun owner or the average person, you're all in the top 10% at the least. More like 5 to 3%, right? Anybody who shoots matches is going to be an insane shooter compared to anyone else. Your family members probably call you John Wick, like jokingly, right? That is an okay thing. It's an okay thing to pat yourself on the back and say, I am a good shooter. Now, do not confuse this with an egotistical or a false sense of security, saying like, I'm the best shooter in the world, because your internal bullshit ticker is going to go off, and then you're not going to believe yourself, and then you create the worst outcome possible, which is on the inside, you'll know that you are a liar to yourself, which you don't want, right? But one thing we really want to avoid, and a lot of people kind of emphasize this, they'll say, you should not be happy when you're training. Like, you should be constantly frustrated with yourself. I completely understand the perspective of that, right? Because you absolutely don't want to think you're a perfect shooter, like I said. If you're dry firing and you're like, oh yeah, that was great, there was nothing that needed to be fixed off of that, you're lying to yourself. But if you take that and become a pessimist about your performance, you're not going to enjoy shooting. You're going to create a negative self-image, which is actually going to cause you to perform below what your skill level is actually at. And it's just, you're going to be a fucking negative Nancy, and no one's even going to want to train with you, right? So as we're doing this training, and this is why we're talking about this before we really dive in, as we're training, I don't want any of you to be like, oh, I suck at this, or oh, I'm really bad at this rep, right? If you have a bad rep, that's okay. We're gonna have a lot of bad reps. That's what we're here to train for, right? We're fixing all of this. So instead of, I'm bad at this, what I did right there just sucked. You need to flip the script and start saying, I'm getting better at this. I'm getting better at smashing the trigger and keeping the rounds on target. I'm getting better at shooting into a position effectively. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
The words we speak have meaning. That's why they call spelling, right? We are creating our own reality with our thoughts, our actions, and our words. And people do not place enough value, most of the time, on what they're thinking and saying, especially about themselves. It may come off as humble to say, oh, I'm not that good. But what you're really doing is taking like a mallet and just like beating yourself down into the ground. We do not want that, right? When you come to a match and you come with a negative self-image, if I'm driving to a match and I'm like, Yari's gonna probably kick my ass again, do you think I have any chance of beating Yari? Probably not. Once in a blue moon, maybe, right? But if I come to that match and I'm like, Yari's got his work cut out for him, or even, I've been training more than Yari, I know it. I'm probably gonna smoke Yari today. Do you think I have a better chance of beating Yari? Right. It's just like that. Your self-image is going to allow you to perform at your skill level. It's never going to allow you to perform past your skill level, right? Because if the technical skills are not there, and then you call yourself the best shooter in the world, you're still gonna perform like the shooter that you actually are. But what we're doing is allowing ourselves to be 100%, rather than having a shitty mindset and being at 50, 60, 40%. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, positive imprints. I'm getting better. I am improving. That's it. You got anything?
Yeah, one thing to add. This is a sport, an activity that you will never become perfect. Even the best shooters in the world, like, is there anybody here that doesn't know Rob Latham? Okay, good. Everybody knows him. So I heard an interview from him. He said, I never had a match that it felt perfect. Actually, he said, I never had a stage that everything went perfect. So even for a shooter like Rob Latham, he has imperfections. So the goal is not to become perfect, because we will never get there. This is such an activity that it's so dynamic, so many things involved. The goal is to become better. Percentage of success, we want a higher percentage of success than failure. And like Eric said, the point is building that self-image. Imagine your self-image is a bank account. anytime you have a good rep, anytime you have a good stage, anytime you do something good, you're depositing something into that account. Anytime you have a bad negative thought about yourself, you are taking away from that balance, even with interest. So if something doesn't go the way it should go, your self-talk should be, okay, I will get better at this. Or I'm trying to find a way to say, make my grouping tighter. Never say, I suck at this or that.
Yeah, and the final point here is imprints. I briefly mentioned that word. I didn't quite explain how we do that. So yes, self-image, we're flipping the script. We covered that. But when it comes to building imprints, what I'm really speaking about is when you have a bad rep, I do not want to necessarily hear about it. And you should not want to hear about it from yourself either. If you think and you write and you talk about your mistakes, what do you think you're going to become an expert in?
Mistakes.
Your mistakes. Is that what we want? Absolutely not, right? So what we want to do is when we have a bad rep or when we have a bad stage, yes, we should absolutely maintain awareness of our mistakes. We should know where our biggest areas of opportunities for improvement are, but we should not be mulling over them. If you post your matches on Facebook or Instagram, you should not be saying, I shot this local match, I did a really bad job at transitions, blah, 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 blah. No, you need to be talking and thinking and writing, especially writing, about what you are doing right. You need to be creating positive imprints. If you're shooting some of these drills and you're doing some stuff good and some stuff bad, remember the stuff that you did good, right? Okay, flipping this script and understanding what you're doing right is going to empower you to keep doing things right, rather than constantly having this image of what you're doing wrong in your head. Parts of self-image is not just the I'm getting better, but you can also stretch this a little bit. Again, none of us here are like egotistical narcissists. I don't think you're going to become one by practicing this. This is going to help the already humble shooter be a little bit better. You need to start telling yourself, I am a good shooter. It is like me to do well at matches. It is like me to perform accurate transitions. It is like me to have fast splits while maintaining my accuracy. When you have mistakes, you need to separate that self from you. Most shooters, when they have a good performance, they are separating that from themselves and being like, that wasn't like me. That was a really good run. I don't know what I did there. I guess I got lucky. No, unless you cheated, and it's hard to cheat, you did that. That is you. Dropping a mag should not be something that you freak out about. My internal voice is not saying, wow, I'm a really shitty instructor. I dropped a mag on a demo. What I'm telling to myself when that happens is, I dropped a mag. Shit happens. That was unlike me. That was not Eric, right?
That's a good lesson.
Does everyone get it? I think we kind of drove this one home. Let's shoot guns. Cool.